For those of you who may be new to my channel or who may not have seen my more recent videos, I have been documenting my recovery from foot surgery, a midfoot fusion and bone graft for a Lisfranc dislocation. In this video, I am documenting what my first week after surgery was like to help people who are recovering from non-weight-bearing foot or ankle surgery to have some idea what to expect, especially if you haven't had surgery before and might be a little nervous not knowing what to expect. So on Wednesday, July 31st, 2024, that was my first full day after the surgery. I made sure to stay on top of my pain medications. All of the medical professionals at the hospital the day of my surgery had made sure to tell me to stay on a regular schedule for the pain medications for at least the first few days, as those would be the most painful. Both my husband Matt and I had slept pretty lately the night before. The first thing I noticed was how much better I felt having recovered from the migraine I had gotten the day before. I had gotten a headache recovering from the surgery and the anesthesia, which turned into a migraine, and it helped so much having recovered from that. Overall, I slept a lot that day. I did manage to take a shower in the morning with a lot of help from Matt. It was not easy, and the shower routine took a long time, I think about 45 minutes, but I felt much more human after being able to wash my hair that morning. I used a shower transfer bench that I had gotten off of Amazon, which worked amazing. My mom, my dad, and my middle sister Aunt Helen stopped by to visit later that day. My mom gave us some really good food for meals, and Aunt Helen, who works as a nurse, gave us some really good post-surgery instructions that helped me feel a lot more prepared to deal with the next couple of weeks. I was surprisingly able to wiggle my toes a little bit in the afternoon, which was more of an accidental movement than on purpose. Aunt Helen warned me not to do that too often, as it might aggravate my foot in the very beginning of my recovery. The rest of my foot and ankle was very stiff, and I could not move it at all. I made sure not to push movement those first couple of weeks while I was waiting for the stitches to come out. Some of the things that were really useful the first day after surgery included using an elevation pillow. I got mine off of Amazon and it was super helpful. Periodically taking off my walking boot while I was resting. Since it was summer and my house does not have central air, it would get sweaty in the boot. My foot also had quite a bit of swelling, so the boot would get super uncomfortable. Icing my foot often while the boot was off. Moving my legs around for circulation regularly, as getting a blood clot is a risk after surgery. My primary care physician had advised me to take advantage of my ADHD need to fidget, as that would help keep me moving. Getting a lot of sleep and making sure that someone was around to help me when I needed to get up for any reason, because I was pretty disoriented and exhausted from the surgery, in addition to being in a lot of pain now that the nerve block had fully worn off. Thursday, August 1st, 2024 was the second full day after my surgery. My foot was definitely hurting quite a bit, which made me really appreciate the painkillers I'd been prescribed. At times I felt like the inside of my foot was burning where the hardware had been installed. Mostly it was a constant soreness in my foot and ankle. Occasionally I would feel stabbing or shooting and just really intense, brief periods of pain. I was permitted to have the walking boot off as much as I wanted while I was resting with my foot elevated, which was a huge relief because the amount of swelling my foot was causing a lot of pressure inside the boot. I had more difficulty moving around with the crutches that day, but I did manage to take a shower again that morning. Matt, of course, was there to help me, but it was for some reason more difficult and exhausting than the day before. I got chills just from the effort of going from the bedroom to the bathroom, and I had moments where I had to pause on the way to the bathroom and have Matt or my mom, who came to visit, standing behind me to stabilize me. I started to honestly feel afraid of moving around at all because I had stumbled and nearly fell a few times, even with all of the help that I had from others getting around. Being someone who is used to being pretty active, I go to the gym 4 times a week and walk 3 to 5 miles a day. This level of exhaustion and inability to get around without assistance was frustrating and demoralizing. Overall, it was a really difficult day, but I was enormously grateful for my husband and family, and also for my friends who were flooding me with texts to see how I was doing. A few other things from that second day after the surgery was that I found that I could move my foot and ankle the tiniest bit forwards and backwards, but still not side to side. I needed to sometimes take a break from the elevation pillow because it was a little bit high, so sometimes I would lay on my side, or I would stack 2 pillows under my legs while laying on my back to have some lower elevation. Other than the pain, I was not getting any sensation from my foot and didn't have any sense of where it was or how to move my lower leg around when traveling around the house or moving moving around. This made things like showering and turning around corners much more difficult, and I sometimes needed some extra help moving my leg around because I would bump it against things like the door frame or the furniture. So good thing I had the walking boot on. I also remember this being the worst night after the surgery. I even wondered if I had made the wrong decision getting surgery at all, because it did not feel like the painkillers were doing anything at all that evening and night. But thankfully, things did not get that painful again after that. Friday, August 2nd, 2024 was the third full day after my surgery. We were starting to get a shower routine down in the mornings because I was typically too tired in the evenings to shower, even though typically I'm an evening shower person. The shower routine was taking about 45 minutes because I would need to get into the bathroom, cover my walking boot with a bag, use an elastic band that my mom had put together for me to fasten the top of the bag, and then get into the shower using the shower transfer bench. The surgeon had told me that I could shower without the boot on, but honestly I felt too nervous to shower without it. In case I fell getting into the shower, and even if I didn't have the boot on, we would have to still cover my foot because I was not allowed to get it wet until the stitches came out about 2.5 weeks after my surgery. After lunch, my mom came over that day and we were able to get me down the stairs for the first time since my surgery. I was really excited to get a change in scenery, but it was really hard getting me down the stairs, and I don't think I would have made it down the stairs without 2 people to help me. Matt stood a few steps in front of me and my mom stood behind me to help keep me stable as we went down one stair at a time. And Matt even stacked a bunch of pillows at the bottom of the stairs in case I slipped and fell, so that I would have a comfortable crash landing pad. I was able to use my knee scooter to navigate the first floor, but still had quite a bit of foot and ankle pain, so moving around was pretty difficult. However, the change of scenery was really nice. Icing my foot and ankle helped a lot with the pain and swelling, and I was icing my foot and ankle about 4 to 7 times a day at this point. Saturday, August 3rd, 2024 was the 4th full day after the surgery. This was the first day that I was able to space out the prescription painkillers a bit without feeling too much of an increase in pain. I did have to be careful about how much I moved around and had to keep my foot elevated pretty much all the time that I was sitting down, and continued icing regularly 4 to 7 times a day, or else the pain would be pretty bad. The types of pain alternated between stinging, throbbing, sharp, and feeling very sore and bruised. I was able to get around the house a bit more easily with the knee scooter. Having both the knee scooter and the crutches was really the right move because they both had their own uses for different parts of the house. It was still hard for me to move around easily, but having 2 different mobility aids was really helpful. I was starting to feel a bit more alert overall, although I did still feel really tired and did need to take a nap. I did take a pain pill at bedtime, but then I didn't need to take any overnight at all, which felt like a win. Sunday, August 4th, 2024, day 5 after the surgery. This was the first day that felt noticeably a little easier after the surgery. This is not to say that it wasn't still difficult, because it still was. My youngest sister Sophie came over to hang out for the afternoon. She and Matt helped me down the stairs, and she had the idea of having me sit down and slide down the stairs. This was an idea that my mom had also had a couple days ago, but at the time I was not quite ready for that advanced maneuver. This day I did feel ready, and so I was able to sit down at the top of the stairs and then slide down, which ended up working out really well. Sophie had brought over a really good lunch that she had made herself, which was really hard to stop eating, and we binge watched a Netflix show that we had started watching not too long ago called Designated Survivor. For those of you who haven't watched that show, I would highly recommend it. While we watched it, I kept my foot elevated, I iced it, and overall I was moving around more easily still with the crutches and the knee scooter, and was feeling still more alert that day. I was able to wiggle my toes a little bit. Monday, August 5th, day 6 after the surgery. The muscle in my calf that had been really tight for a few months before the surgery, probably from the foot instability, was finally improving thanks to the heating pad that I'd been using, and having the heating pad on my lower leg was also helping some with the pain in my foot. I could move my ankle from side to side a tiny bit. I was really missing being outside at this point, but the hospital had recommended against my going outside at least at the beginning of my recovery, since I was considered a fall risk. Things that were common throughout my entire first week. 1, I needed to keep my foot elevated pretty much all the time if I wasn't moving around. 2, I needed to ice my foot 4 to 7 times a day. 3, I needed to take at least half a pain pill at night before bed because evenings seemed to be the worst time for pain and swelling. 4, even though the doctor said it was fine for me to take my walking boot off for the shower and sleeping, I preferred to keep my boot on for both of those because my foot did not feel stable enough to have it off for either of those activities, and I did not trust myself enough to not accidentally do something wrong without the boot on. And 5, I had to keep reminding myself not to push myself too hard to move around or overdo things, even though I felt frustrated with not being able to move around.